As promised, it is Sickos Committee time, and we are calling on the commish to bring us up to date on just what the Sickos Committee is. If you follow college football, and I'd say in North America or on this entire planet, you should know what the Sickos Committee is. But if you don't, here's the commish. Commish, good to have you on. We've been chasing you for a few weeks now. I'm glad that we caught you.
I'm glad to be here on Canadian television. So this feels appropriate as the commish reaching out, international outreach. We already have a big contingent of followers in Australia due to the love of punting, which we're big fans of the CFL onside punt. Um, we're huge fans of any part of the game, and the college football game is just so wonderful and wild, and it spans so many different teams, and it's it's basically like the last chance you get to play organized football in your life because unfortunately not all of us can be professional football players. So we like to celebrate all the weirdness and all the fun, and we shine a light on crazy touchdown celebrations we just saw from Incarnate Word this weekend, which happened in the same city where I reside, and uh, you know, it's spreading to the NFL now, and we just like to have a lot of fun, and we really don't care about like yeah somebody's gonna win the title, but the fun part is really just getting to that point and just celebrating every little game that we get to enjoy all year long.
Canadians see college football in the United States through the television lens, through the D1 lens, through the SEC lens, crowds of 80, 90, 100,000. But there's a much broader world, even just through the total space of Division One. That anyone can dive into. I've been to games in Buffalo. Look, I've been to games where there's 7,000 people in the stands. I've been to games where there's a lot of wacky stuff that goes on, and I find that appealing. I think that's something that we share in common is the randomness that can occur in college football. I think in a way it's kind of a shame that the people in Canada only see it through that TV lens. What do you see in the States, and what do you see through the lens of Sickos Committee in terms of all the little wrinkles and creases and idiosyncrasies in the game that you can amplify through your platform?
This like we just wanted to highlight the fun games. We kind of just do the throw the records out, and we look at interesting matchups from like an unconventionally appealing aspect. That's kind of like our mantra, unconventionally appealing, because you're talking about everybody's looking at it on TV through the SEC. I'm like, yes, the natural person that wants to watch this game wants to see the best versus the best. We look for the matchups that match basically equally talented teams versus equally talented teams, no matter what the records are. So, like last week, we had Northwestern versus Purdue as our game of the week. Now, the Purdue's like 1-6, Northwestern's 3-5. I mean, like your normal person is not going to search that out, but we wanted to see that game, and we got to see that game go to overtime because we knew these are like two equally matched teams. There's going to be a weird snap off of a center's butt. There's going to be a strange, decision made in overtime, which Purdue made one, which was quite interesting, based off like coaching staffs. And another one we like Toledo versus Eastern Michigan. You see Eastern Michigan throw Hail Mary at the end of the game, and instead of going for the extra point in the tie, they go for two. Unfortunately, they miss it, and then they wind up losing the game, even though they complete a Hail Mary, which is things like that. That's what we search out. Like we look for that fun stuff, and we're trying to get everybody to know the lower levels because a lot of us in the committee, including myself, went to like lower level schools. Like there's 134 schools in Division One, like the championship series. There's like 130 more, so there's like 261 Division One schools. There's like 764 through Division Three. So there's so many different stories out there. There's so many different people going to those many different schools, and we love talking about that because that's the fun part. Like that, you kind of know who's going to be there at the end of the year, kind of. But enjoying the ride the entire season, no matter who's playing what, no matter what the records are. I mean, that's kind of the joy of college football for us.
So, who is the Sickos Committee? Who is the committee that you preside over, Mister Commissioner?
So we had this Twitter account that we have now, which is over 142,000 followers, which is insane to think of. We started this account as like an inside joke for like 20 people. We were in a Discord community, which is like an online chat community, and I started ranking the games during the pandemic year, and I was like, okay, this is the most unconventionally appealing game. Like, who is going to be watching, like, not Indiana this year because they're very, very, very good, but like who's watching like Indiana versus Michigan State at like 7 p.m. when you have like number one versus number two playing on another network? Like, nobody's watching that one, but we are. I mean, like, we have the folks that we have on the podcast. We have one that went to Division III Teal. We have a Pitt fan who's enjoying a great year after a bad year last year. We have the other podcast host. He went to Dartmouth and he got his PhD from North Texas. I personally went to, I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I went to Louisiana Monroe, who's been a bottom dweller and praying they can make a bowl game this year. They're one away. And then, I grew up in New Orleans, watched like Tulane football when they played in the cavernous Superdome, which you're talking about 7,000 people in like a stadium that holds 70,000. Yeah, you could see stuff like that. So I've gone to see like so many different games with I like the people in the stands that just appreciate it and support their family, their friends, are the team no matter what. That's what we're here for. And we call ourselves the Sickos. Is We're not calling your team sickos. We're sickos because we can't get enough watching college football. Basically, we want to just keep watching it no matter what's going on. If you're punting a bunch, if you're doinking extra points, I mean, there's so much fun to enjoy, and I think probably the favorite play is the safety, which is it's rare, but and something had to have gone wrong when somebody gets a safety.
Well, you've been connected to Canadian football now for a little while. You
Big
got
time.
swept up in it. How did you get connected with watching the CFL? Is it one of those things where you get grads from mid majors, you get grads, say from a conference like the MAC,
Yes.
from a conference like the Big Sky,
Yeah.
right? That come up to Canada, and then you can continue to follow them through there. Was that the connection for you guys?
So, like with the CFL, we started watching the CFL like, a good bit, and I've always been fascinated with the CFL because our spiritual home, our Twitter account, is from Shreveport, which I went to like Louisiana Monroe, which is about an hour and a half from Shreveport, and I've always known that Shreveport had a CFL team, like the Shreveport Pirates in the '90s, which I mean, it's still fun to think about that happened, and the incredible stories from that occurring. And then on top of that, knowing I don't know if you know this off of Twitter, but there's always something like there's a remember some dudes thread where they just remember like players that used to play for their college team, and then you realize, hey, one of those guys is actually in the CFL. Like, hey, it's Jeremiah Masoli. Or like, hey, it's Bo Levi Mitchell from Eastern Washington. Or, it's just like, hey, it's this guy. I remember him playing. And so there's the connection there. Um, like, ULM quarterback Caleb Evans, who was the backup for Montreal last year, and I think he got hurt this year, unfortunately. But he went to Ottawa, the Red Blacks. And I'm sorry, I got to say that in all caps. The Red Blacks. Uh, he went to Ottawa, and I'm like watching him. I'm like, hey, this is cool because not many people from Louisiana Monroe are playing professional football, and like he's like the backup quarterback for the Red Blacks, or he's like the short yardage running specialist for Montreal, the Alouettes last year, and just having that league, and then on top of that, the Canadian rules are so amazing. Like, I love the CFL rules. Like, I cannot get enough of like being nearest to a fumble if it goes out of bounds instead of having to recover it in bounds. That's amazing. The onside punt by Montreal has been like a huge hit for us, and it when we tweet stuff like that for the normal college football fans, it completely like breaks their brain. And we love that. So it's a lot of fun. It's fun to look at, like, what's happening here? Explain this to me. And of course, I can't live without the rouge or the single, whatever you want to call it. Like, give me that at all times. And like the walk off rouge, I think there was a walk off punt by, oh man, who did the walk off punt?
Jake
Was it the
Julian.
Argos?
It was Jake Julian with the Edmonton Elks.
Edmonton. Okay, the
Yeah.
the last game of the regular season, Edmonton had a walk off punt, and I'm like, this is like, people are asking, like, hey, why not just punt it and boot it out the end zone for one? I'm like, well, first of all, the end zones are 20 yards deep. It's kind of tough to boot, and then you're already like 15 yards back, so it's kind of like, okay, who's got the bigger leg, the kicker or the punter? And so just to see the walk off punt, it's incredible. So that game is nuts. And then learning the two down thing. We did a podcast on the CFL in the USA, and that kind of spurred our um, interest in the CFL before. And then the combo of, like, I mean, punts hitting the scoreboard at BC Place this year. I mean, it was, oh man, the referee, like, just saying, okay, this is odd. It hit the scoreboard. Like, I forgot his name off the top of my head, but it's just a joy
I think
because,
that was Ben Major.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ben Major, he had to do it twice, and then the third ref was just like, hey, whatever Ben said, we're gonna replay the down. It's so great. It's because, I mean, sports, essentially, it's supposed to be entertainment, and then people tend to take this too seriously. There was a point in my life where, like, my team loses and I'm gonna let it affect the rest of the weekend, and I was like, no, I can't live like this. Like, I have to enjoy. I have to enjoy in the moment, and then when it's over, yeah, it's. I'm sad that my team lost, but hey, look, there's 138 other games going on right here. There's another game right here. Like, can you believe that this guy tripped and he threw the ball over his head, and that's a safety? I mean, can you believe that? Like, things like that, we kind of try to bring the joy back. And it's funny that our name is like Sickos, and you automatically think of like a negative connotation. And so we're constantly fighting against that connotation, I think. But I mean, we're the ones that are, like, looking in the window, like, just looking at it and just enjoying everything that we see. It's always so much fun.
By the way, as the current general secretary of IFAF and the incoming vice president of IFAF and the former president of Football Canada, I am very thankful to you guys for promoting the 110 nothing game that Canada scored over Brazil. Thank you very
Yes,
much for that.
that I mean,
It actually started the ball rolling for impressions for that World Junior tournament. You had a direct effect on something that was really a rumor and a secret to people. And your platform then triggered any number of reactions as the United States stumbled their way through that tournament and off the podium. We had 125 million impressions from that tournament. So thanks for getting
that
the ball rolling on that.
I mean, like, things like that. If you ever need us to promote something, you got our email address. Let us know. Like, we find a lot of things. Like, when I first started the account, and then the cartoonist reached out to us, and because we were just using the meme itself as like a logo, and he was just like, hey, um, as long as you keep using this for a good purpose, and you're not trying to make money off of it, you can keep using the image. Then at a certain point where we got a little bit bigger, and I think he found us at like 3,000 followers, which was incredible. As we got a little bit bigger, we reached out to him. We did a licensing deal. We have, like, our own little like, merch store, which I
Hold it
have
up.
the thing.
Hold it up. There
Yeah.
you go. Free plug.
So this is we have a little pre-order for the stand right now. Well, it looks like it's poking my nose, but it's a little thing. Like, he made our own version of this cartoon for us, and we had a couple of different versions of this. We have a pre-order for the stand that's going on right now, along with merchandise. He gets a majority of the profits of that because this is his art, and we wanted to continue that on. We're just grateful for him by allowing us to repurpose his work and put it towards, like, a football aspect thing, which is incredible. Like, the things that we stumble across over the summer, like, we've gotten big that followers will tag us into things and we'll be like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Or we've gotten to the point where we can do data research and find things. Like, I just found Mississippi Valley State, which is a historically black college in Itta, Mississippi. Their punter had an 80-yard punt this weekend. Like nobody's talking about this 80-yard punt. We found him. We found the punter. We put it in our Substack. We tweeted it, like things like that, to give impressions to certain little things that we have. Is it's funny to use the platform, and like we're always going to be trying to use it for good. We're, again, when we talk bad about a team, like it's in jest at all times, and we're laughing with you because we feel your pain. Because a lot of the times, our committee members are also fans of that team, which we could definitely empathize with what's going on if your team has a really bad game. Like I'm an NFL football fan, and my Saints just fired their head coach today, so I know bad football. Like I grew up with the Saints in the '90s; they were awful. So I've been always about this lifestyle of watching my teams no matter what and just trying to enjoy it.
As a kid, I grew up as a BC Lions fan in the 1970s and the 1980s, and I once had a blog. It was called the Edmonton. We got to leave the name out. I'll say the Edmonton football team ruined my childhood. That was the name of my blog, right? So I understand what this suffering is.
Yes,
For a college football fan, a CFL fan. I just
yeah,
want to touch on one thing with you because you guys have actually crossed over into Canadian college football from time to time.
yeah.
What have you seen out of U Sports football that you find
So
intriguing?
we actually have a Canadian member in our committee. He lives in Hamilton. He was actually able to cover the Grey Cup last year, which the CFO like allowed us into the press room, and of course his opportunity was to ask about the onside punt to Montreal's head coach, which lightened the mood a little bit before the game. I believe he asked it. So uh, the Vanier Cup, which we're familiar with U Sports, we're trying to get into it a little bit more. We don't have like full bandwidth, and a lot of this is kind of like a hobby for us. Like we have like a small business going, but we still have like normal jobs. But crossing in the U Sports is fun because we get to see. There's been some crossover recently, like some Canadian football players that played in college and made it to the NFL, which is fun. You see, like I think there was
Well,
somebody out of
on your
Regina.
Saints, you have David
Yeah,
Onyemata that
yes,
walked
Anyamata.
into Brian Dobie's office
Yes,
one day. Brian Dobie, the head coach of the Manitoba Bisons. Onyemata had never played a game of football in his life,
yeah,
right? And then I was doing play by play in the Canada West back when he was a rookie, so we got to see his progression of this fantastic specimen of a human being in this position, where he stumbled around in his first year, where he could execute physically but not be in the right place in his second year. And by the time he got to his third year, you knew he was going places,
yep.
right? So he's an example. There's a number of other examples out there, and there's also Canadian players that have played at the U Sports level, and then after a couple of years, gone down to the NCAA and have made an impression as well. So,
There's a lot of crossover between that, and I think we were following Simon Fraser,
mhm.
which tried to uh, like I think it was Division 2 in the
Division
NCAA.
two, that's
Yeah,
correct.
and they were in the Lone Star Conference. Like every team was in Texas, and like
Yeah.
Simon Fraser's just out there. And
Well,
I'm like,
it's just the loss of Division 2 teams
yeah,
in the West, right?
there's not. It's like Division 1 or maybe Division 3. There's no Division 2 in the West. And
Yeah.
then the pandemic, it was weird. They had to play across like the border, uh, like at the
Wayne
Washington
High
State.
School.
Yeah,
Wayne High
and
School.
so like we find stuff like that like hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just such a ridiculous position, but people care about this, and the kids they get to play, and that's the main thing we want to get them to play. Also, U Sports. My favorite thing about U Sports is almost every single time there's a track around the field, so they have to clip the end zones off. So like they have the end zones that are just basically have I think Montreal has one in the CFL too, with McGill College, but then or McGill University. I'm sorry if I get them upset, but yeah, it's fun to see it because all the fields are different. Like there's weird dimensions of the field. There's a weird home field advantage, which you see that in the NCAA too with like the colors of the field. like different styles of stands and stuff. And U Sports is very unique. And I mean, having the goalposts in the front still, no matter what you're playing, is just incredibly fascinating, and it is a blast to watch because uh, you know, the goalpost is in play, and sometimes you could use it as a goalpost pick play for a touchdown, which is it's incredible. You have to factor it in, and then you got those 20 yards of end zones where you're just throwing deep routes on the 2 yard line, which is nuts.
Well, prior to 1983, they were 25-yard end zones. You really missed out.
Oh my god, I was only two then, so I wouldn't have gotten it then. But
Yeah, they really cut off some of the corners on some. Actually, in Edmonton, the end zone, the deadline to compensate for the track where they had cut off the corners, they moved the deadline back 30 yards back. Right,
whoa,
so the end zones were 30 yards deep, but in terms of surface area where they had cut off the corners, it worked out to be something like a 25-yard end zone.
that's crazy
So
because
yeah,
I know when like the CFL was in Memphis, like the end zones were like 5 yards.
5 and 8 or something
Five and
like
a
that.
half.
And
It was something.
you had artificial turf along the sides and
Yeah, it
grass
was
in the
just it
middle.
was a mess, but
Yeah,
it was fun to look at that and look back at it now because I mean, like you try to understand the decisions. There was a book about it that I read, which was great. I think it was called like End Zones and Border Wars or
yeah,
something like
Ed
that.
Willis's book. Yeah,
Yeah, that book was
yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah,
I bought that and I shipped it up to our Canadian correspondent so he could read it.
yeah. Fantastic. So what's next for you guys? Where are you in terms of subscribers, in terms of followers? This thing's really blowing up for you guys.
It's been crazy because like I spotted an end zone celebration on Saturday, and basically it's like a headstand that an Incarnate Word player did, and then this thing's at like 7 million views off of a tweet. I don't know how accurate that is, but like two NFL wide receivers did the celebration this weekend too. Us blowing up. I mean, we ideally would like to make this full time. I mean, we have a Patreon, we have a store. We're hopefully in talks to make this full time because I'd love to do this full time and explore the wild world more and get out and travel. Like I just recently went to Flagstaff, Arizona, to watch Northern Arizona and Idaho State play in the Big Sky Conference, which is like Division 1, but like the lower level Division 1.
Mhm.
After every touchdown, Northern Arizona does something like the Red Blacks do. They cut a log and celebrate too. So it's awesome to see like the college logging team cutting a log, like the Red Blacks, and then the Portland Timbers also do it. But it's like the
Yeah.
only collegiate. Like I'm right there, and they got a chainsaw cutting a log. I would love to do that. I would. I want to go to all the weird domes. I would love to come up to, catch a CFL game. I've adopted fandoms, which you said you were a BC Lions fan, so I have to apologize. I've adopted the Rough Riders fandom. Uh, there was, I think it was a John Fraser. We had him on the podcast to do a CFL preview earlier this year in June, I believe. And I love the color green, as you can tell by the headphones. But I've been rooting for them, and then this year's been wild. They had like a double OT tie. They had, I mean, there's so many different things. They won like last second comebacks, and then they lost like three in a row. It's been wild. So I don't know if they can get by Winnipeg. It'd be nice, but Winnipeg is kind of like, I would say, you know probably one of the best. Like Winnipeg and Montreal seem to be in the Grey Cup final. I would think, but if the Argos can get revenge for last year, and maybe Saskatchewan gets over the hump, it'd be fun though. But
Well,
what we want to
you
do
know
in the
what?
future, we want this full time. I would love to do this full time. Are you
I would
kidding me?
love to see you do it full
I would
time.
love to do it full time.
Yeah.
And business partner Jordan, who's also on the podcast, wants to do it full time too. And we're approaching like that point where we're like close. If we can get it full time, we'll just bring more and more stuff because I mean this is just incredibly enjoyable stuff. And I've been looking at defunct bowl games lately that like used to happen in like the 50s. There was one called the Refrigerator Bowl,
Mhm.
and I just want to just talk about that happening 7 times in the 50s in Evansville, Indiana for hours on end. And I would love to get paid to do that.
Well, you know what? Let's think big. Maybe we can. In the mail right now, I have a football being sent to me from the old Can-Am Bowl. Do you know what the Can-Am Bowl is?
Is it the Canadian American Bowl or
That's
is it
right. It
the?
was played in Tampa for 2 years,
Yes.
and it was Canadian All Stars from the CIAU, which is the forerunner of U Sports, against NCAA. They were Division One guys they were playing against.
Yeah.
They were a serious team that they were playing against, and Canada lost by 20 points in the first game.
The
with about
rules in
40
that game
points.
were weird, weren't they?
They were mostly Canadian.
Yeah.
The field was wedged into the old sombrero in Tampa Bay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
the end zones were shorter, but the goalposts were on the goal line.
Yes.
Right, but they
The
generally played Canadian ball. It was nationally broadcast back on CBC to Canada. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the Can-Am Bowl presented by Sickos Committee. That's what I'd like to see.
oh man.
That's
If
what I will work on with you over the next decade to try to
okay.
achieve.
I mean, look, that's a goal. I'm all for that. Like if we can make something like that happen, the Can-Am Bowl, maybe get some. We'll do some Division One like FCS folks, and get maybe we could make it. Yeah, we can make this happen. We got to have this in like a really fun stadium too.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
100%.
give us a really weird fun stadium, and we're there.
If we could knock a wall down in the Kibby Dome, it would be perfect.
They can expand the airport hangar out there, which the glorious Kibby Dome, which is I'm getting up to the Kibby Dome at some point. I did the walk up Sky Dome in Flagstaff, and I did Holt Arena, which used to be called the Holt Mini Dome in Pocatello, Idaho. I'm I'm gonna make that trek. If we can make like a Kibby Dome Canadian American bowl, oh yeah, done for sure.
Start in the Dakotas and work your way
We
towards
got
the
it.
coast. I've been to the Alara Center. It's a fantastic little facility.
Oh, that's in
Actually.
North Dakota, right?
Yeah.
That's where the Fighting Hawks play. Yes,
That's right, and it would match
it would
your
match the
green.
headphones. Yes,
Match the
there's a
headset.
lot of
Yeah,
green there. Yeah.
exactly. By the way, before I let you go, I'm one of the patrons of the Cornish Trophy, the trophy that's given to the top Canadian in the NCAA. We're in
Ooh,
year 8 right now. Elike O'Manor of Stanford. won it
Stanford. Yes.
last year. I think it's going to come down between him and Curtis Rourke of Indiana. When it
Mm,
comes time to start getting information out on the old interwebs, can you give us a helping hand?
for sure,
Yeah,
guaranteed.
it's niche.
It's. I mean, again, that's what we are. We are niche. We don't know how we got this big. Honestly, it amazes me every day when like somebody likes a tweet of ours. It's weird because we just started this and I started tweeting. Our first big hit tweet, I remember it clear as day. It was a 3-yard punt by Central Connecticut State against Miami. The ball was snapped over the punter's head. He had to run 40 yards deep to get it. He got it, spun around, and was hit as he punted. And then the ball just bounced 3 yards past the line of scrimmage out of bounds.